I'm like, oh my God, am I becoming like the Barbara Walters of these interviews? I'm not looking to be that
Yeah.
person to make people get like really emotional on the podcast.
What up, everyone? Shakiel Mahjouri here for CBS Sports, and you know who this is. She is the host of Oral Sessions, one half of Jack and Pack on the NHL Network, and Throwing Down with Renee and Misha on Sirius XM. Man, that is a
I know.
lungful, Renee.
It's a lot. I know there's a lot going on, There's always a million things and different segments to be a part of and different shows to worry about. So I know it's a lot for me to rattle off sometimes too.
Well, it's amazing. You've managed throughout my career. This is the first time that I haven't had the breath to finish an intro. So I think that just says so much about all the wonderful work you're doing. How are you
Or I
today?
need to abbreviate the names of all these shows.
Perhaps. Maybe there's some sort of crazy acronym we can encompass them all under. Renee, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Got my free upgrade on my coffee this morning. I think I need it. I'm very
Yay.
excited about that.
Very nice. I just got myself a new cup for this as well, so we're ready to go.
Very nice. So let's get going very quickly, guys. If you can, please, if you like what I do, want to support the YouTube channel's growth, thumbs up, subscribe, notification bell, comments, all that stuff as Renee goes a long way to help drive the metrics. Really appreciate
I know it.
that.
Get on there. Leave the man a comment.
Thank you. Now, before we get to all the amazing stuff that we're going to unravel here for the CBS Sports feature, guys, link to the written feature in the bio of this video. I want to start here. I got to get the tough questions out of the way. You get to keep two, but drop one forever, okay? Eating deliciously, hosting fabulously, sipping copiously.
Well, gosh. Definitely, I'm for sure keeping the eating
Yes.
deliciously. That is a for sure. I guess I would have to go sipping copiously.
Okay, well.
Given the circumstances of what's gone down in our household, it's definitely. I've actually as much as it's funny because and when I talk about the cookbook and I talk about these cocktails and stuff, I've not been drinking in the last couple months, and I feel fucking great.
Isn't it? It's a life changer. You don't know until it's kind of.
Oh my God. Well, the thing is with it is it becomes so habitual to it hits 5, 6 o'clock. You're sitting on the couch, you put on your show. It's like, oh, I should have a glass of wine, whatever. And you just get used to feeling a certain way. You feel a little bogged down. Your mornings are a little foggier, a little slower. So to not have that, I feel good when I go to the gym. I feel great when I get up in the morning, which of course is extra beneficial when you have an 8-month-old daughter that gets up at, 5:30 in the morning. So yeah, I think I would have to ditch the sipping copiously right now.
Yeah, my friends and I are going to an all-inclusive in Mexico in April, and I have by far become the boring dad of the whole trip. I'll just lay on the bench there. I'll organize some activities. You kids go have
Yeah,
fun.
I know. It's funny. You really have to do rethink what your activities look like. Like if you're going out to dinner, you're going to go and actually physically go do some stuff rather than just kind of be barflies and hang out. Changes the vibe for
100%.
sure.
Now, we're in a really fun era of pro wrestling where we're seeing, for a long time, guys and girls and this bunch who may not be satisfied with their work in WWE or maybe are released through, no fault or part of their own, now can find other opportunities in other promotions. And now we're kind of starting to see the pendulum swing the other way. But, the independent landscape for broadcasters coming out of the WWE is never really been as rich as it has for wrestlers, right? A lot of promotions can't afford the sort of broadcasting that the WWE does. I think you were just a shining example of someone who was able to segue the success they had before WWE, but especially all the great stuff they did in the WWE and go independent. And you're a really rare example of it. Can you sort of share with me what some of the learning lessons were in being able to make a successful transition out of WWE as someone who's not a full-time wrestler?
Yeah, gosh, I mean, first of all, I'm very tired. I'm constantly working, which is great. And you always want to have a busy schedule. That's the way that I function when I'm not busy. My brain is like, what's next? What's next? And that can definitely be, a bit of a place of anxiety for me where I always feel like I need to keep going and working and working. But I think one thing that I've learned over the course of this year and a half is patience. It's patience, and it's, you know, I think when I first left WWE, it was sort of that feeling of like, what am I going to do? What's going to make the most sense? And kind of figuring like, you know, maybe I'll go work for another network. Maybe I'll go do another studio show somewhere. But when I left in like peak COVID time, that was not the case. I mean, all productions had halted. Nobody was hiring new people. That just was not the case, which was really that kind of blessing in disguise where it's like, well, I'm going to start doing something myself anyways. And I've always really wanted to be in control of what my own narrative was. I've always wanted to really just, yeah, I guess it's like creating my own content and being able to put that out there. But that being said, it's a lot more work, as you know, than to just turn on a camera and turn on a microphone and make something happen. It's like there's so much more behind that. So I was really lucky to join up with the Volume really quickly after I had launched the Oral Sessions, which is now the Sessions. But yeah, I was able to jump on with them really quickly, and that's been super beneficial to me in the sense of, you know, their production over there is awesome. They help me a ton with you know, getting the social clips and getting the stuff ready for YouTube, all that stuff. There's no way I would be able to do that without them. And then, yeah, being able to do the segment on NHL Network with Jackie Redmond, that was one that, you know, it's one of those things that kind of popped up. I've been a hockey fan, obviously, my whole life. You grow up in Canada, you don't really have a choice but to lean into the sport. So it was really cool to be able to circle back around and work with Jackie, for her and I to just get to have a little bit more of like a fun, loose interview style segment that we do with NHL Network. So that's been a ton of fun. And then jumping into the radio world, that was not something I had really thought much about. And that has been a learning curve as well of like realizing like, okay, like, yes, we are recording it in the sense that we are now, but it's not television. It's long form, learning to like take my time. It's like finding that right energy level. It doesn't have to be the energy of TV, but kind of bring it down so that you can go the duration of 3 hours while also dabbling in a sport that I had not really worked in at all. I mean, we talk pro wrestling, but we actually talk a lot of MMA and combat sports a lot more. So yeah, it's really just been such a learning curve, and the patience of not being like, I need to have that one thing right now. It's like I kind of put my iron in a couple fires and was in, you know, I've been letting them all kind of burn and build on their own. And there's something really organic and cool about that I get to have ownership over. It's awesome.
I'm just so hardwired with oral sessions, and I know I had some people in the Reddit Q&A wonder what happened to the oral. Did that get dropped for why I assume it got dropped, or what's the story
So
there?
I had decided to drop that. It's funny, like I love the name. I think Oral Sessions is awesome. It, you know, it
I'm a
obviously there's
fan.
like that tongue in cheek side of it. But when I was first thinking of the idea for the show, I was like, well, it's all just about conversations, you know, and that's where the oral aspect came from, though. Of course, there's that double entendre with it. Um, but anyways, as I kept, you know, as I'm growing and doing these other things, hearing people say like, "Oh, here's Renee Paquette joining us. You can hear her podcast, The Oral Sessions," in certain venues,
Yeah,
it just sounds wrong. So it's like, okay, let's kind of like change that. You know, I also just think it opens up to like more sponsors and
I
whatnot,
agree.
just in
Yeah,
case if people are a bit like apprehensive and they think that it's something different than what it is. But I mean, sex sells and it pays the bills too, though, right?
yeah. Hey, that's 2020. The last couple of years, especially in the pandemic, lots of people working from home, trying out new endeavors.
Exactly.
You're entirely right, but you know,
Exactly.
the day ones know. The day ones know, and it'll always be a part of them. So I wouldn't worry too
It'll
much.
always be oral sessions to me, damn it.
Exactly, exactly. Um, is it true that you had? Because I know you constantly get asked about, are you going to AEW? What's going on there? Is it true that you had a 1 year or an 18-month no compete clause after leaving the WWE?
I had a 12-month non-compete.
12
Yeah.
months. So I
Yeah.
imagine that sort of settles that conversation. And I'm just kind of looking for clarification there. What sort of impact did that have on your immediate post WWE plans?
You know, it didn't really affect it because truly when I was leaving WWE, I wasn't looking to go from one place to another. It was more so just like, you know, at the time, everything I was able to do with WWE, I did so much there, you know, like I literally wore every hat I could possibly wear there, and it was awesome. But I wanted to take that and turn it into something
Mm-hmm.
different. I didn't want to take that and like, I don't want to just say that it's not a parallel move. It's not that, because, I don't know what the opportunity would be within
Mm-hmm.
AEW. Maybe there would be something really great there. But I really wanted to take what I had done with WWE and move it into just a different path. Yeah, I really just wanted to kind of use that as my way to kind of create something for myself.
For sure. And I think I know I've talked to Ariel Helwani about this before, where it's like once you really get known for something, people I think get a little protective, and when you start to explore other opportunities, they feel like you're abandoning them. When the truth is, I'm
Yes.
sure your love of pro wrestling is as great or greater than it was. You still cover a ton of pro wrestling, by the way, but
I
you have
know.
other interests and there are other opportunities, and you have more to offer. So I imagine this was a really good opportunity for you to sort of say, well, I can't even do a ton of pro wrestling stuff right now. Let's see what else is out there.
Yeah, it really made me have to like, it's like, okay, what are we gonna do? And yeah, it's like, I am known for pro wrestling. I'm never gonna like not be in that world in some capacity. And that's why with the sessions is cool, because I get to interview all of these people that I have built these incredible relationships with over the years. And I just had an episode with Dax Harwood come
Mm-hmm.
out, and that's one that I think is like a prime example of really being able to peel back the layers of this person that you see on TV versus who he is as a man. And I don't think that that conversation would have happened had him and I not had the relationship that we already have, in order to know that, you're in a good, safe, trusted space
Yeah.
and we can have this conversation. So, the wrestling aspect of that, I will always love. And I love having those chats. But I also, on the other side, like you said, it's like when you branch out and want to do things that aren't wrestling. I had on a marriage and sex therapist on my podcast. And it was one of those episodes that's like, oh my God, that was so fun. I went into it feeling like so tired, a little overwhelmed with like what the week had thrown at me. But then I sat down with Dr. Lisa Paz and we had this amazing conversation, and it was like completely enlightening. And I had so many people like my friends reaching out to me, people that I didn't even know were like actually always listening to the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
being like, holy, that conversation was amazing. So that's the thing for me, is like being able to take my platform and branch out into things that are of interest to me, even though, some wrestling fans might be like, oh, well, if you're not talking about X, Y, and Z, I'm not going to tune in. But to know that some people are still listening and following me into some of those other avenues is really cool.
Well, keep those notification bells on. That way you know when there's a
Yes.
wrestling themed one dropping.
Yes.
You mentioned the Dax one. I've only seen the clips, but it looks like such a. You have both. I mean, clearly people know you well in the industry and are comfortable around you, and that's sort of the beauty of these interviews. Is I think it's hard for talent to open up when they don't know the other person. What are their intentions? What are the headlines going to look like? For you, how do you sort of balance that act of interviewing people that you know personally? Because for them, it's very easy, but I imagine for you, sometimes you sort of have to parse through like, what is appropriate, what isn't appropriate, how far do I want to go, how do I sort of remain neutral in this as an interviewer, while also, because I know you have that hardwire as a broadcaster, even though sessions is more of your personal project. How do you sort of balance all that?
Yeah, it can definitely be difficult. There's times that I'll be sitting down with someone and as I'm interviewing them, I'm like, "Oh, I know that I personally know this nugget of information about you, but it's a conversation that we have had away from any microphones,
Mm-hmm.
away from any cameras. So is that something that I think in that moment is something that you want to talk about, or something that you want other people to know about?" Sometimes, depending on what it is, I may buzz the person ahead of time, just be like, "Do you want to get into this? Don't you?" I don't do that often. It's kind of a feeling out process. Though I do think the good thing is now is, we're 115 episodes in, something like that, that I think people kind of know what to expect when they're getting these interviews. It's funny
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, from the amount of people that I've had get like emotional and like really tap into some serious stuff on the podcast, I'm like, oh my God, am I becoming like the Barbara Walters of these interviews? I'm not looking to be that
Yeah.
person to make people get like really emotional on the podcast, but yeah, I think that, oftentimes people get wrestlers on and they want to just get those juicy dirt sheet headlines, and that's never the MO for me. It's like I want to have conversations about you as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
that's way more interesting to me than like some backstage heat kind of situation that may have happened and whatnot. I mean, every now and then I will bring some stuff up like that, but yeah, it can definitely be difficult to navigate, like, yeah, and remaining neutral on certain things. It's funny, I feel like so many people are like, think that I'm just all pro AEW now and anti WWE, and that is
There's
so
two
not
very
the.
firm camps of
Oh my
thought there, and it's
gosh,
very
it's
hard
just
to get a partisan opinion on the issue.
it's crazy. And it's like, I feel like people, they're like, you're so negative about this, and I'm like, what? When? Like, I love everybody there, and I really don't have like these negative crazy things to say. But yeah, I feel like anytime I have those conversations, I always kind of tread lightly, because I'm like, God, I don't want it to be that thing of like you versus you and blah blah blah. It's like, oh my God, I hate that
Well,
shit.
careful when you get asked to award one promotion as the best of the year. I saw those headlines.
Oh my
Are you
God.
okay to go 5 or 10 more minutes? I don't want to
Yeah,
keep you too long. Yeah.
sure.
Thank you. Is it okay if we just very briefly touch on John? I promise I won't pry too deep.
Sure.
I just want to take a moment and sort of celebrate John. What has it been like for you to see him take the time he needs to sort of tackle these personal challenges, and then sort of that just wonderful comeback and the run he's had since?
Yeah, I just think, I think he is such a shining example of somebody going through something and taking the time for himself. And AEW was great as well of giving him that time and giving him that space. But all those things aside, it's like, just to see the difference in him and the health aspects, all of those things, to see him. I mean, he's like stubborn, but he's also got this like really crazy work ethic that I know when he sets his mind to something, he's locked in on it. So to see that, and then to see him have that moment of coming back and like getting back in the wrestling world, like I was watching from home, and as soon as his music hit and he came out, I was like, oh my gosh, like it made me feel a way I wasn't really expecting to feel. I had just kind of put on Dynamite to watch it, knowing he was coming back. I knew he had a promo. I had no idea what he was going to say. He had no idea what he was going to say. Um, which again is just, I guess, another testament to how good he is at promos, because he went
Seriously.
out there and I was like, oh my God, that was like poetic. It was amazing. But yeah, he is the best man. He went in, he did what he had to do for himself. He did what he had to do for our family. And it's so nice to see him on the other side of things. And it's not one of those things that's just like one and done. There's always work to be done, and things to work on. But yeah, it's awesome. I couldn't be more proud of him.
That's beautiful. I love to hear that. I love that my girlfriend could not care less. In fact, she just wishes I do anything but talk about MMA and pro wrestling. And for me, that's a very healthy counterbalance I need. I need someone who's super removed from what I'm spending all day thinking about.
Hmm.
What are some of the great things about having someone as a partner who is in a similar industry than you, who is in many ways an independent contractor who's so ambitious in that sense? What is it like to have those parallels with someone who you're married to?
It's awesome. It really is cool. It's funny. Like, I get your point too. It's really nice to be able to shut off and be like, "Hey, I can compartmentalize X, Y, and
Hmm.
Z." And you and I, like, this world does not, we don't have to talk about this world. But for him and I, it's really cool that we met in WWE. We spent years on the road together. So I think it's cool in terms of just being able to relate to him, especially now. It's like, especially while he's still on the road, but I am not. We've got a young daughter at home. So I do have a good idea when he comes home of like, I know you're tired. I know you've been on a plane. I know you've wrestled. I know what your day has been like, that there are these long TV days. So I have a good aspect of what his schedule looks like and the things that he's gone through. But then, also just business things into it as well, of like, depending on what he's going through, if he's got a match he's worried about, or, pay-per-view thing that's coming up, or something that he wants to do, or whatever. It's nice, I think, to be able to have those conversations with somebody that does
Hmm.
understand what you're talking about, rather than me just being like, what? I don't know. I don't have a clue. I get that might be nice sometimes for some people to be able to have that outside perspective, but I do think it's nice to sort of have that ally and a partner that really understands your line of work.
I love that. Before we hit the kind of like closing notes, for a long time, I think AEW since its inception, it's kind of been viewed as that safe haven. Guys who want to wrestle can wrestle a little bit more free of the WWE politics, etc. Now we have the first the first period, but what a big first one for Cody Rhodes to be apparently making that transition out of AEW to WWE. How big of an opportunity is this for WWE to show that, to maybe do a little bit of a PR scrub here and say, it's not just that people leave here and get happy. People can come here and be just as successful or more successful, or we can be a place for people who aren't happy elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, yeah, the door swings both ways when it comes to that. And you're right, it is so new. And that's the way wrestling works, right? People are going to jump ship from one company to another. And again, it's one of those things that's really good for the business, but it's good for the wrestlers. It's nice to be able to know that those opportunities are out there. And, you look at something like WWE, and it's like everyone always says, you never say never. No one's ever going to not go back to WWE. I think there's so many different reasons why somebody would want to be there and what WWE has to offer. And what WWE has to offer is different from what AEW has to offer. So it really depends on what you want, what point in your career you're at. There's so many different factors that kind of weigh in. So, I think it's really cool just to see those opportunities and see people go to do the things that they want to do. I don't really know the details of Cody's situation. I mean, maybe he's just retiring. Who knows? Who knows? But I think so many people, and Cody too. It's like, maybe Dusty was such a pivotal role for so many people in WWE and especially at NXT. There's still that legacy there that I'm sure obviously is very important to Cody. So the fact that he's gonna potentially show back up there, I like being interested in wrestling and wondering what's going on. So to be watching and being like, what's going to happen? I mean, even having Miz kind of teasing who's my partner going to be. Edge is now doing these promos leading into WrestleMania, kind of little teases of like, ooh, could it be Cody? And I love that stuff. It makes me very excited just to watch wrestling. So it's a good thing.
Love it. All right. Last thing before I let you go, Renee. Now, I don't know how many pro wrestlers can really lace up a pair of skates, but if you had to draft your starting lineup of pro wrestlers on the ice, who are you drafting?
Okay. Edge, Christian, Sami Zayn. I'm assuming that he can skate pretty well.
All because they're Canadians?
No, it's because I imagine that they are like, I know that Christian can like play. Yeah. I imagine Edge can play. So I'm not going to draft Punk because I know that he's like not good on skates. So he can maybe be like the GM. He could be the head coach, perhaps.
I'm sorry to just hop on bandwagon onto your question. Does Jericho? I know Jericho's dad played in the NHL. Does Jericho? Can Jericho?
I know he plays like some. I remember being at TV Hotel one time, and he had there was like a huge street hockey tournament happening in the back that he had orchestrated amongst like the talent and the crew and whatnot. So yeah, Jericho should be on the team. I need another player. I'm going to put somebody in net. I got a full line and a player, and Punk is our head coach. I'm going to go. God, I wonder if Shayna Baszler can skate. I'm going to draft Shayna just for curiosity's sake. Yeah. And then in net, I got to go Braun Strowman. He's huge.
I just cover the whole thing.
Yeah. Even if he can't skate, he doesn't have to have great lateral movement. Yeah. You can just stand there and block a bunch of shots.
That's a good call. I feel like a Braun Strowman or a Keith Lee or something. Someone can kind of cover the whole width of that net.
Yeah, Keith Lee would be good because we know how like he's like ambidextrous maybe, and he's got those flips, those moonsaults.
I'm just saying you picked a lot of Canadians, and I think you did so fairly and correctly.
Well, I can't really think of. Oh shoot! I should add Eric Young.
What did I just say?
Should be on the list. But like, I can't really think of any American wrestlers that are huge hockey fans. Nobody's coming to mind.
That's okay. I'm just saying the American teams may be well. The American teams might be great, but just remember where you're drafting all those players from.
I know it's not my fault that Canada makes great hockey players and great pro wrestlers.
Amazing. Renee, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for doing this. I want to leave you with the last word, so I'll do my little spiel now. Again, guys, if you can, please, if you enjoy this, you watch the end, I think you know what you got to do. Subscribe, notification bell, thumbs up, comment, all that goes a long way. Thank you to CBS Sports, as always, for empowering the video version of this interview. Full feature with Renee Paquette in the bio. Please check it out. Renee, if there's anything you want to let the people know, please let them know. When you're not doing it on all your other shows.
Yeah, I know there's a million things. Here comes my long spiel. All right, you guys can check out the sessions. That's with the Volume Podcast Network. The episodes drop on Tuesdays and Thursdays, anywhere that you get podcasts. There's also my YouTube channel. If you just search my name or the sessions, it all pops up there because there's the video version of the podcast. If you want to watch us have these conversations, I hang out with Misha Tate on Throwing Down with Renee and Misha. That's Mondays on SiriusXM from 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And then I do Jack and Pack on the NHL Network, either Wednesdays or Thursdays. You guys can keep an eye out for that. It's always on our social media.